morning. I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching Eagle News International. Here are the news in these extraordinary times. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear says authorities have located the bodies of 4 children as the death toll keeps rising following flash floods in the state that swept away some homes while people slept. The death toll from a major earthquake in the northern Philippines rose to 10 after another 4 bodies were found in the rubble. Spain and Brazil reported their first monkeypox-related deaths, marking what are thought to be the first fatalities linked to the current outbreak outside of Africa. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will travel next week to the Philippines to meet the new president, Marcos Jr., with Washington expecting a close alliance. And tonight, some heartbreaking news. The deadly flood disaster in Kentucky, the death toll climbing, torrential downpours, catastrophic flash floods, and mudslides in the eastern part of the state, streets turning into rivers, residents stranded on rooftops. The governor said he expects the death toll to rise. He also said authorities have located the bodies of the 4 children as the death toll keeps rising following flash floods in the state that swept away homes while people slept. Take a look.
So as governor, I've seen a lot. I've certainly done 3+ flights and/or tours over flooded areas. This is by far the worst. Perry County, a number of mudslides, roads that are impassable, and while we didn't get all the way into hazard, a number of homes that are nearly total. Jackson, the area around it, and Breathitt County, devastated. Much of the city itself underwater. Hundreds of homes, their ball fields, their parks, businesses, under more water than I think any of us have ever seen in that area. Absolutely impassable in numerous spots. So just devastating. I have received notice that they've located the bodies of those 4 children mentioned in the Herald Leader story today, and I know we'll be contacting their parents. It means we've got at least 6 dead children, and that's hard. It's even harder for those families and those communities. So keep praying. There's still a lot of people out there, still a lot of people unaccounted for. We're going to do our best to find them all.
Hundreds of people have been rescued by boat since the flooding began Wednesday evening, and there have been about 50 aerial rescues using National Guard helicopters, according to the governor. In a swathe that's totally submerged, the city of Kentucky devastated after these torrential rains sparked sweeping flash floods and mudslides. Officials confirmed the numbers, at least 16 people in the Appalachia region of eastern Kentucky, the governor declaring a state of emergency. Some areas reported receiving more than 8 inches or 20 centimeters of rain in a 24-hour period. The water level of the North Fork of the Kentucky River at Whitesburg rose to a staggering 20 feet within hours, well above its previous record of 14.7 feet. President Joe Biden has issued a disaster declaration for the Kentucky flooding, allowing federal aid to supplement state and local recovery efforts. The eastern Kentucky flooding is the latest in a series of extreme weather events that scientists say are an unmistakable sign of climate change. More extreme weather this time. 2 days of flooding near the Iranian capital have killed at least 24 people and 19 are still missing. The flash flooding near Tehran in the foothills of the Alborz Mountains comes less than a week after the floods in the normally dry south of Iran left 22 people dead. Largely arid, Iran has suffered from repeated drought over the past decade, but also from regular flooding after torrential rainfall. And Farouk Zoo, east of the capital Tehran, Governor Mohsen Manzouri told state television that 10 people lost their lives, 12 were injured, and 16 are still missing. He said the area suffered the most damage because of a mountain landslide. A preliminary official toll on Thursday put the number of dead at 7, with 14 missing in Imamzadeh Davud, a tourist destination just outside Tehran and the Demavand region. On Friday, Interior Minister Ahmad Vahidi told state television the flooding had hit 18 provinces, among them Alborz, Isfahan, Markazi, Tehran, and Yazid. He also said that in Yazid, in central Iran, roads were flooded, especially in the Old City, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Red Crescent warned people in an SMS message sent on Thursday to avoid rivers and mountainous areas until Monday. Meanwhile, at least 7 people have been killed in the United Arab Emirates after unseasonable downpours triggered flash flooding in eastern districts of the normally parched Gulf state. The ministry later announced the death of a 7th Asian migrant. July temperatures in the UAE regularly hit 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit, but its east coast can also be affected by the Indian Ocean monsoon. Now, when torrential rain falls on sun-baked earth, it can lead to flash flooding. The emergency services said they had answered hundreds of calls for help over the past 2 days as the floodwaters swamped the streets of the port city of Fujairah and other eastern districts. Now, here in the country, the death toll from the major earthquake in the northern Philippines rose to 10 after another 4 bodies were found in the rubble, according to authorities, and aftershocks continued to rock the mountainous region. The powerful quake rippled across the hilly region, damaging thousands of homes as well as toppling buildings. Take a look.
Pwede siguro panandalian, balikan yung mga bahay nila kung doon lang sila sa tapat nag-evacuate. Pero wag mag-stay. Kasi ang sabi po, if I'm not mistaken, within the first 3 days after the main quake, posible pa tayong makaranas na medyo malalakas. And if I'm not mistaken, parang ikatlong araw pa lang ngayon.
Now, rescuers in the town of Luba in the hardest-hit province of Abra retrieved the remains of the men on a section of road that was buried by a landslide during Wednesday's 7-magnitude quake, according to the Provincial Civil Defense Office. Landslides and collapsing structures killed 6 others in Abra and nearby provinces, according to authorities. More than 150 people were injured. Military helicopters were flying food aid and other emergency supplies to the region, where nearly 5,000 people remained in evacuation centers, according to the Social Welfare Department. Crews of workers braved aftershocks to clear debris, blocking key roads in the region. More than 1,000 aftershocks have been recorded since the quake hit, according to the state seismology office. And indeed, it has been a volatile week of climate extremes. In the U.S., it began with the biggest fire of the year in California near Yosemite. Take a look.
If this fire were to hit the Ferguson fire scar, it will slow it down a little bit because there's less fuel there. That fire was as recent as 2018. So although vegetation has come back, it will be more thin than a lot of the vegetation that's not been burned. Several factors. We have low humidity, so not a lot of moisture in the air, high temperatures, as well as that is compounded by years of drought, so less precipitation overall. And then we also have a high tree mortality in Mariposa County, so a lot of dead standing trees, a lot of dead trees that are on the ground. That, coupled with the topography of the area, which is steep in a lot of places, is leading to extreme fire behavior.
Nearly 3,000 firefighters, backed by 24 helicopters, have been deployed near the southwestern edge of Yosemite National Park. In recent years, California and other parts of the western U.S. have been ravaged by huge and fast-moving wildfires driven by years of drought and a warming climate. The Oak Fire in Central California broke out on Friday and is raging while parts of the United States swelter through a heat wave, including the usually cool Pacific Northwest. It is the most destructive blaze so far this fire season, according to CAL FIRE, destroying more than 3 times the acreage of the nearby Washburn fire, which has been nearly 90% contained. And the world has been hit by extreme heat waves in recent months, including Western Europe this July. A drought in England. The Environment Agency has released a statement following urgent drought talks that has been happening these days. It said it's urging people to use water wisely to protect supplies and the environment. Here's Ashley Espiritu from our UK Bureau.
People in England were urged Tuesday to use water wisely to protect supplies and the government after the Met Office said the previous 8 months had been among the driest on record. The advice from the Environment Agency came after it convened a national drought group comprising senior decision makers from the agency, government, water companies, and other interested parties to discuss the current conditions. England and parts of Wales are severely parched following months of record low rainfall and unprecedented temperatures in recent weeks. A punishing heat wave that swept Western Europe last week pushed temperatures in Britain over 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, for the first time ever. Earlier, the Met Office said its statistics for November to July for England and Wales showed it was the driest period apart from a record spell in 1976. Most of England was moved into prolonged dry weather status, the Environment Agency said, meaning it is now taking precautionary actions to mitigate impacts as hydrological conditions deteriorate. Stuart Colville, Director of Policy at Water UK, said water companies have detailed plans in place to manage water resources for customers and the environment, and are doing everything that they can. As we continue to see extremely high demand, we are urging everyone to carefully consider the amount they are using given the unprecedented conditions. This is Ashley Espiritu. We live in extraordinary times.
And a tragic story, at least 2 Hong Kong dancers were injured on Thursday night after being hit by a falling screen at a concert of the city's most popular boy band, The Mirror. Take a look. Now, footage of the incident circulated online showing a group of white-clad dancers performing on stage at the Hong Kong Coliseum when a giant overhead video screen fell and crushed a man. The screen then toppled onto at least 1 other person before the remaining performers rushed to help. Mirror's manager, Alpha Wong, later took to the stage. He apologized and asked the audience to leave. According to video clips circulated online, 2 male dancers were taken to hospital while conscious shortly at 10:30 p.m. local time, according to police. Now, at about midnight, the city's Queen Elizabeth Hospital said 1 man with a neck injury is now in a serious condition, while the other was in a stable condition after a head injury. Now, the Hong Kong government has halted Mirror concerts until the stage structure is proven to be safe, according to the Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism, Kevin Yeung, in a late-night statement. Hong Kong's leader John Lee said he was shocked by the incident and has ordered a comprehensive investigation to assess the safety requirements of similar shows to ensure the safety of performers, crew, and the public. Over the past year, Mirror have emerged as the most popular Cantonese pop act and are credited with revitalizing Hong Kong's local music scene. North Korea reported 0 fever cases today for the first time in more than 2 months since it confirmed its first COVID infections in May. North Korea has recorded nearly 4.8 million infections since late April, according to KCNA, adding that 99.994% of them had fully recovered with just 204 patients under treatment. North Korea has not vaccinated any of its roughly 25 million people, having rejected jabs offered by the World Health Organization. The North said in late May it started seeing progress in controlling the outbreak, but experts have cast doubt on that claim, citing the country's crumbling health infrastructure and unvaccinated population. WHO Emergencies Director Michael Ryan said last month he assumed the situation in North Korea was getting worse and not better, though he acknowledged Pyongyang had provided very limited information. Meanwhile, South Korea's COVID-19 tally stood at 82,002. That is according to Arirang News, about 3,300 less than the day before, but still 1.2 times as many as a week ago. Authorities are confirming that 3 more cases of the BA2.75 subvariant, also known as the Centaurus strain, is pushing the total of that infection to 7. With 35 more virus-related deaths, the total now stands slightly above 25,000. Now, the COVID-19 alert levels in the country will remain in effect until the new classifications are announced. That is according to Malacanang. According to Press Secretary Trixie Cruz Angeles, the Department of Health is still reviewing the COVID alert level system. Let's listen in.
That will be called by the DOH, so we will have to wait. Anyway, they do, right now it is status quo, so we'll maintain the alert levels for now, but the entire process is also continuously under review, so we'll have to wait.
Pending the review of the alert level classifications, President Marcos Jr. has agreed to retain the most lenient alert level 1 classification in more than half of the Philippines, including Metro Manila. DOH officer in charge, Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere, earlier said the department might come up with new COVID classifications by the second week of August. Meanwhile, the Biden administration says it plans to offer updated Pfizer and Moderna COVID boosters by September. The new versions are reformulated to better protect against a BA.5 Omicron subvariant, the highly contagious subvariant sweeping across the world. Only people over 50 and those over 12 or immunocompromised are currently eligible for the second booster. Now, the government's decision comes as cases of the highly contagious BA.5 variant remain high across the United States. Deaths and hospitalizations have risen in recent weeks. The number of new cases announced each day has hovered near 130,000.
About 8 to 12
Meanwhile, Macau beachgoers were left high and dry as the Chinese hub reopened 2 beaches on Saturday but banned swimming and water sports, citing coronavirus concerns. The city is gradually recovering from its most serious outbreak to date, which earlier this month led officials to shutter casinos and most businesses for nearly 2 weeks. Now, as temperatures reach 34 degrees Celsius or 93 degrees Fahrenheit today, Macau residents were allowed to enter the beach for walks and relaxation. But officials drew a line in the sand. They banned water-based activities. Beachgoers must at all times wear masks of the right specification, maintain social distancing, avoid gathering in crowds, and refrain from strenuous exercise. Meanwhile, Malacanang Express over the detection of first case of monkeypox in the Philippines expressed concern. This after the Department of Health confirmed the first case of monkeypox in the country involving a 31-year-old Filipino who returned to the country from an overseas trip last July 19. The DOH assured that the public health surveillance systems are able to detect and confirm monkeypox cases. Again, let's listen in.
The case had prior travel to countries with documented monkeypox cases.
The case was tested and confirmed positive for monkeypox via reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction, or RT-PCR, done at the DOH Research Institute for Tropical Medicine on July 28. The case has been discharged well and is undergoing strict isolation and monitoring at home. Monkeypox is caused by a different microorganism. It's different from COVID-19. It spreads mostly by intimate sexual contact with those who have rashes or open lesions. It is not like COVID-19 that spreads mostly through air. Keep our hands clean, wear face masks, cover cough using our elbow, and continue to choose areas with good ventilation or airflow. Yes, no? So basically, for the close contacts of this case, as with any other cases, based on our guidelines, you need to quarantine for 14 to 21 days, no, based on the onset of your symptoms. No? So we'll just need to observe them for that duration of period kasi doon yung pwedeng lumabas. As to passengers coming from abroad, some of you who might have traveled would note that the Bureau of Quarantine One Health Pass, it also asks screening questions about monkeypox. So that's the first line. Second is fever nga yung isang symptom, di ba? So meron pa rin tayong mga temperature screening na available sa airport natin. Then of course, yung mas hindi lang makikita, no, would be the rashes, di ba? Kasi kung naka-long sleeve yung pasahero, no, but efforts are ongoing now para matingnan, no, kung mga naka-jacket, pwede silang papatanggal yung jacket, but then this would be probably the most difficult to screen from afar.
To fall, it's only one case, number one. Number two, as you can see, it doesn't affect the entire population. Number three, this is not like COVID that can be spread by air very easily and could possibly be fatal. This is not particularly fatal, but it is of concern. So his primary concern was to get the information out so that people will be aware, but also to be aware that the systems of the DOH are in place and that this is not the same as COVID.
Meanwhile, Spain and Brazil reported their first monkeypox-related deaths, marking what are thought to be the first fatalities linked to the current outbreak outside of Africa. Spain is one of the world's worst-hit countries, with 4,298 people there infected with the virus, according to the Health Ministry's Emergency and Alert Coordination Center. Of the 3,750 monkeypox patients with available information, 120 cases were hospitalized and 1 case has died, according to the center in a report. An official would not give the specific cause of death for the fatality, pending the outcome of an autopsy. In Brazil, meanwhile, a 41-year-old man died of monkeypox, according to local authorities. The man, who local media said had serious immune system problems, died on Thursday in Belo Horizonte, the capital of the southeastern Minas Gerais state. He was receiving hospital treatment for other serious conditions, according to the state health ministry in a statement. Brazil's health ministry has recorded to close to 1,000 monkeypox cases, mostly in Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro states, which are also in the country's southeast. And here is one of the shocking moments in Oscar history. Take a look. Will Smith, who went on to win the Best Actor award, marched on to stage and hit Chris Rock for making a joke about his wife in an incident that overshadowed the March ceremony being broadcast live around the world. Smith had made a public apology shortly after the incident and was banned from attending the Oscars for the next 10 years after this slap. The 53-year-old also resigned his membership with the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, although the organization did not revoke his Best Actor award for King Richard. Now, the actor Will Smith broke his silence. He apologized to Chris Rock for attacking him on stage. He also revealed in a lengthy video clip that he has reached out to the comedian, who was not yet ready to talk. Take a look.
why didn't you apologize to Chris in your acceptance speech? I was fogged out by that point. It's all fuzzy. I've reached out to Chris, and the message that came back is that he's not ready to talk, and when he is, he will reach out. So I will say to you, Chris, I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk. I want to apologize to Chris's mother. I saw an interview that Chris's mother did, and you know, that was one of the things about that moment. I just didn't realize, and you know, I wasn't thinking, but how many people got hurt in that moment. So I want to apologize to Chris's mother. You know, I made a choice on my own, from my own experiences, from my history with Chris. Jada had nothing to do with it. I'm sorry, babe. I'm going to say sorry to my kids and my family for the heat that I brought on all of us.
Now, this video arrived after Chris Rock also addressed the incident in a live comedy event in New York last week. He said anyone who says words hurt had never been punched in the face. Rock also stressed that he is not a victim and said he wouldn't go to the hospital for a paper cut. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Alam namin. Ngayong linggo sa Cine Throwback.
Ano pangalan mo? Big po. Big po. Ano mo si Fernando po? Wala po. Sumunod ka sa akin ha, sa presinto ha. Jen, wala akong gasolina ito eh. Wala ba? Wala ho. Ay, tulak mo na lang hanggang presinto. Meron pala ho. Alam ko, meron pa eh.
Nakadiscover siya na yung mga hinto ba, doon na lamang sa likod ng pansin niya nililimas. Naglulusutan pang gano'n sa nito eh.
Ngayong linggo, alas 12 ng tanghali. Dito lang sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's get together sa Net 25.
Ang mga katagang pinya, husi, inabel, abaka, yakan ay ilan lamang sa mga kilalang local o indigenous materials sa ating bansa. And these have been showcased in international fashion events through our local designers or craftsmen. How do we make more people wear local? What are the obstacles in making these fashionable pieces more accessible? And how does pop-up stores help in raising awareness on these unique pieces? We'll find out from our special guest, Miss Mons Romulo, the visionary behind Katutubo.
First of all, passion. You have to love what you're doing, but you have to also give the best quality.
Only here and open for business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos. Every Sunday, 9 p.m.
Oh, yeah!
Naguguluhan to.
Ito pong si Alin nagnakaw dito sa resort.
Eh wala ba sa inyong naka-witness?
Tama na muna nga. Ayoko nga sumama. Kasi ako na naman ang magbibigay niyo ng gamit niyo.
Hindi na. Kasi ikaw na yung magsasagwan. Sira yung motor ng bangka. Bilis! Tara!
Ilalagay ko itong mga bolang ito dito sa beach. Tapos hahanapin ninyo.
Okay!
Okay!
Welcome back. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will travel next week to the Philippines to meet the new President Marcos Jr., with Washington expecting a close alliance. The State Department in a statement said Blinken will meet Marcos in Manila on August 6 as part of efforts to strengthen the U.S.-Philippines alliance, including on energy and trade. This will be Blinken's first trip to the country since assuming office in January 2021. It also follows the official visit of Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman, the State Department's second highest official, in June. President Marcos quickly received a congratulatory call from President Joe Biden after he won the May elections. The United States has a treaty alliance with the Philippines and has backed its former colony in increasingly heated disputes in the South China Sea with Beijing. Blinken will head to the Philippines after attending the talks of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN Summit, in Cambodia. The top diplomats of the United States and Russia spoke for the first time since the Ukraine war, with Secretary of State Antony Blinken describing a frank exchange as he pushed to free 2 Americans. Blinken initiated the call with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, whom he had shunned as early as a few weeks ago as he pressed Russia to accept an offer to free prisoners. Take a look.
And with regard to the call with the foreign minister today, as I noted the other day when we had an opportunity to speak, I told you what I intended to raise with him, and I raised exactly what I said I would raise with him. That is, the significant proposal that's been on the table for some weeks now that would lead to bringing home Paul Whelan and Brittany Griner. I urged Foreign Minister Lavrov to move forward with that proposal. I'm not going to characterize his response, and I can't give you an assessment of whether I think things are any more or less likely, but it was important that he heard directly from me on that.
Now, Russia's foreign ministry, in a statement on the call, said that relations between the two nations are in strong need of normalization. Lavrov also denounced the U.S. military and NATO for their supply of billions of dollars of weapons to Ukraine, saying it only prolonged the agony of the Kiev regime, extending the conflict and its victims, according to the foreign ministry. The U.S. proposal, sent quietly to Russia several weeks earlier, reportedly includes swapping the 2 Americans for convicted Russian arms smuggler Victor Bout, and would follow a similar prisoner exchange in April. The telephone conversation was the first between Blinken and Lavrov since February 15, when the top U.S. diplomat warned Russia against invading Ukraine. Now, Blinken also said he also pressed Lavrov on Russia honoring a Turkish brokered proposal to ship grain out of Ukraine and on purported plans by Moscow to annex additional parts of Ukraine seized by Russian troops. Mr. Blinken said he told Lavrov that the world will not recognize annexation. Take a look.
To the entire world that is looking for an end to the blockade of the Odessa port by Russia, that has denied so many people the food that they need and depend on, and has also resulted in a significant increase in food prices over many months. Important that he hear directly from me on behalf of many other countries the expectation that Russia would move forward with its commitments and would end the blockade and allow the ships to sail. And finally, you heard me say the other day the deep concern that many countries around the world have in hearing in recent days about Russia's expanded war aims in Ukraine, particularly their plans to proceed with the annexation of additional Ukrainian territory. And I laid out exactly what we anticipate they will do in the weeks and months ahead, including having sham referendums in these parts of Ukraine, trying to falsely demonstrate that the people in these parts of Ukraine somehow seek to become part of Russia, all to advance President Putin's objectives in gobbling up as much Ukrainian territory as he can. And it was very important that the Russians hear directly from us that that will not be accepted.
Meanwhile, Russian energy giant Gazprom suspended gas supplies to Latvia following tensions between Moscow and the West over the conflict in Ukraine and sweeping European and U.S. sanctions against Russia. Gazprom drastically cut gas deliveries to Europe via the Nord Stream pipeline on Wednesday to about 20% of its capacity. The Russian state-run company had earlier announced it would choke supply to 33 million cubic meters a day, half the amount it has been delivering since service resumed last week after 10 days of maintenance work. EU states have accused Russia of squeezing supplies in retaliation for Western sanctions over Moscow's intervention in Ukraine. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has blamed EU sanctions for the limited supply. Peskov said, quote, technical pumping capacities are down, more restricted. Why? Because the process of maintaining technical devices is made extremely difficult by the sanctions adopted by Europe, unquote. The European Union this week agreed to a plan to reduce gas consumption in solidarity with Germany, where the Nord Stream pipeline runs to, warning of Russian blackmail. Now, this declaration came a day after Moscow and Kiev accused each other of bombing a jail holding Ukrainian prisoners of war in Russian-held territory, with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky saying more than 50 were killed and called the attack a war crime. Take a look.
Заслухав сьогодні доповіді про удар окупантів на Оленівці Донецької області. Це був свідомий російський воєнний злочин, свідоме масове вбивство українських військовополонених, більше 50 загиблих, коли оборонці Азовсталі виходили з заводу, ООН і Міжнародний комітет Червоного Хреста виступили гарантами життя, здоров'я наших
воїнів. Изолятору в районе населенного пункта Еленовка, в котором содержатся военнопленные украинские военнослужащие, в том числе боевики формирования Азов, нанесен ракетный удар из американской реактивной системы залпового огня «Хаймерс». Погибло 40 и ранено 75 военнопленных украинцев. Кроме того, ранения различной степени тяжести получили 8 сотрудников изолятора.
Russia's defense ministry alleged that the strikes were carried out by Ukraine with U.S.-supplied long-range missiles in an, quote, egregious provocation designed to stop soldiers from surrendering. It also said that among the dead were Ukrainian forces that had laid down their arms after weeks of fighting off Russia's brutal bombardment of the sprawling Azovstal steelworks in Mariupol. But President Zelensky laid the blame squarely on Russia. We'll be back with more right after this.
Ngayong linggo sa Cine Throwback.
Ano pangalan mo? Big po. Big po. Ano mo si Fernando po? Wala po. Sumunod ka sa akin ha, sa presinto ha. Jen, wala akong gasolina ito eh. Wala ba? Wala ho. Ay, tulak mo na lang hanggang presinto. Meron pala ho. Alam ko, meron pa eh.
Baka discover siya na yung mga hinto ba, doon na lamang sa likod ng pansyo niya nililimas. Naglulusutan pang gano'n sa nito eh.
Ngayong linggo, alas 12 ng tanghali. Dito lang sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's get together sa Net 25.
Hello mga ka-moments! Nandito tayo ngayon sa Marcos Ancestral House at bibisitahin natin ng First Sister. Si Madam Amy nandito oh.
Feeling Madonna. Meron pa ganon, buntis na Madonna.
Special Edition with guest Senator Amy Marcos.
Panalo tayo pag together, wala talo pag together. Let's stand together. Senate 25.
Pilipinas at saan mang panig ng mundo, ihanda na ang shopping list nyo dahil narito na ang online shopping show kung saan ang hanap nyo, meron dito. Narito na ang Shopping All the Way with Jojo A. Eat na hit? We have it! May sayawan, tawanan, pati naiyakan. Pati pets nyo mag-i-enjoy dito. But wait, there's more. Dahil pati celebrity sellers, makikipag-online selling din. At hindi lang yan, dahil may chance kayong makabili ng collectible items mula sa inyong mga paboritong artista. Kaya what are you waiting for? Add to cart na! Shopping All the Way with Jojo A. Opening soon sa Net 25.
The international cast of 13 Lives, the film version of the true story of the rescue mission to save a soccer team from a cave in Thailand in 2018, walked the red carpet at the world premiere in Los Angeles. Take a look.
Well, we had the diving and the specifics of the procedure needed to be authentic, had to be accurate, and yet cinematic and suspenseful. So I wanted the audience to really feel and understand what it was like to be in those terrifying caves, you know, trying to do something as important as saving these kids.
And I'm very honored to play the character I did and to be able to escalate Thailand to this level of Hollywood and to let the whole world see it again. This is a repaying. They came to us when we needed them. So I think this is something for them to see how everything took place and that they were a part of it.
I know obviously spent a lot of time with Vigo and he knows that is exactly my character. I wouldn't sugarcoat things, I just say it as it is. And that, in a way, that's what was needed in Thailand because it was a very difficult situation and people needed to explain, i.e. me, what was going to happen, and this is what we needed to do to get things done. And we had to be direct and forceful.
Hey Rick, you following what's happening in Thailand? Some kids stuck in a cave. It looks easy, but when it's flooded, it's impassable.
Deep cave diving. Now, 13 Lives, which stars Joel Edgerton, Colin Farrell, and Viggo Mortensen, retells the story of the spectacular rescue of the 12 boys and their coach, who in June 2018 found themselves trapped in Tam Luang Cave for more than 2 weeks. Recreating the conditions of the intense incident was both physically and psychologically challenging for the actors. Colin Farrell, who plays British cave diver John Volanthen, said during a screening of the film's trailer on Monday that it was terrifying to film most of the time underwater, even under expert supervision. It didn't help that Farrell, by his own admission, can't really swim. Now, 13 Lives will be available in August for streaming via Amazon Prime after its cinematic release.
All you've been bringing out is dead bodies.
The biennial North Queensland Ceramic Awards has long aimed to increase public exposure to a high standard of pottery from around the nation. The City of Townsville Art Collection Award of $10,000 continues to provide both opportunities for artists to become a part of one of the nation's most significant ceramic collections, as well as ensuring the continued growth of this important subsection of the City of Townsville Art Collection. Here's Morgan Goodfellow. Morgan.
Townsville's Perk Tucker Regional Gallery holds an assembly of local, national and international exhibitions. This season, the North Queensland Ceramic Awards is happening. The biennial awards has long aimed to increase public exposure to a high standard of pottery from around the nation. A showcase for both well-known and emerging artists, this competition displays the diversity of ceramic art currently produced here in Australia. The City of Townsville Art Collection awards $10,000, aiming to provide opportunities for artists to become a part of one of the nation's most significant ceramic art collections. The prize also aims to ensure the continued growth of this important subsection of the City of Townsville Art Collection. A combined exposition will also showcase Pat Hoffey's high-vis exhibition, shining a light on the role of personal protective equipment in the Australian workplace. The inspiration behind the collection follows the artist's trip through Townsville, northern New South Wales, Tasmania, and the Flinders Ranges, seeing the changing faces of those wearing high-visibility uniforms, including women, First Nations Australians, and immigrants. This event is on until the 25th of September. The North Queensland Ceramic Awards is open to the public, sure to spark some interesting conversation about what each artwork means. As always, entry to the Perk Tucker Regional Gallery is free. Morgan Goodfellow, Townsville, Australia, Australia at a glance, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, the Niagara Falls was lit in the colors of the Iglesia Ni Cristo flag or Church of Christ flag to celebrate its 108th anniversary and the 50th anniversary of the Church of Christ in Canada. The Toronto sign was also lit up at the Nathan Phillips Square. Same with the Ottawa sign. Take a look at some of these pictures. Now the Iglesia Ni Cristo, this is the Canada Tower, also lit up with the Iglesia Ni Cristo flag. Now the Iglesia Ni Cristo or Church of Christ was first registered with the Philippine government on July 27, 1914 by its first executive minister, Brother Felix Y. Manalo. It has now spread to 161 countries and territories, with its members coming from 149 races and nationalities. As always, I'll end the day on a thoughtful note. Our ability to look back and smile at our past is proof that God's plan is to keep us moving forward. This has been Eagle News International. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay alert, stay informed, because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.